lineman at some point in time here. They did trade back, though, and got some extra picks. I just know from a family of Charger fans that they're anxiously awaiting to see a guard get selected, which is not something you'll say often.
With the 62nd pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select
David Igbinosun, DB, Ohio State.
Trade alert! The Bills move up 4 spots into the bottom of the second round to draft cornerback Davison Igbinosun out of Ohio State. Welcome into our NFL Draft Special. Alongside a voice of the Bills, Chris Brown, I'm Maddy Glab. Igbinosun is 6'2", 191, long frame, long arms, a speedster, ran a 4.45 40, and knows how to disrupt routes. Physicality is his game. He's going to get in your face and bat balls down. Why does drafting a cornerback in the second round make sense for Buffalo?
Well, I think it was a sneaky need for the Bills because if you look at their current roster right now, the only players on their roster who got on the field last season and played cornerback for this team were Max Hairston and Christian Benford. Mm-hmm. Dee Alford, who they picked up in free agency, obviously played corner somewhere else. Atlanta, he's projected as a possible nickel corner. So outside, you really have no depth because Dorian Strong is coming back from a neck surgery. His future is uncertain as far as an NFL career is concerned. There is no determination on his future playing career as of right now. So he's a major if with a capital I. You don't have anyone else. You needed to fortify the depth at the cornerback position, and the Bills felt it necessary to trade up to get Igbinosun here. And you know, he's reunited with Jordan Hancock, his former Ohio State teammate. So I think it was a need that they had to address at some point in the draft. They choose to do it at the bottom of round 2.
They trade their 66th overall pick. That was their third rounder. And their 182nd pick, that's the 6th rounder, to the Broncos for 62 to get into the bottom of the second round and pick Igbinosun. As you watch his highlights, he flies around the field. He's quick, that 4.45 40. And is a physical cornerback. Press man is his type of game. How will his physicality fit into the cornerback's room in Buffalo?
Well, I mean, he's 6'2", 189. So he's a little narrow-framed, and I think he does have to add strength and a little bit of bulk because he's kind of long and lean. But that's what the Bills like. They like length and height for corners that play outside for them. Benford's 6'1". Hairston, I think, is an even 6 foot, but he's long-limbed. And so, too, is Igbinosun. I mean, he's got 33-inch arms. I mean, that's like offensive line arm length. So they like long, tall corners outside. He fits the bill there. I think he's got to get a little bit bigger and stronger. You know, run support, setting the edge out there on the outside is something that he's still learning to be more consistent with in terms of his game. But you're right about him being a press man corner. He likes getting in the face of wide receivers. He trusts his hip flip and ability to turn and plaster in man coverage and will jockey for position all the time. And I think the word to use for him in terms of plant and drive, he's twitchy.
Okay.
Like he can stick his foot in the ground and go in the other direction at the drop of a hat. So when that receiver is stemming his route, he can plant his foot, or on a comeback, he can plant his foot, jump the route, make the INT. Ultra competitive player. He's the youngest of 4 boys, 6 kids total in his family. We're talking about the number 1 high school recruit in the state of New Jersey.
Yeah. When
he came out for college. Went to Ole Miss for a year. His defensive coordinator moves on. He wants to transfer, goes to Ohio State when Ryan Day gave him a call. So, durable player, 43 straight starts. And the thing that I like is there are plays on the ball. 29 career PBUs in 4 seasons. That's a fat number, playing at a high level of football against some of the best receivers in the country. So, those are encouraging numbers. Where you got to worry a little bit, 18 penalties the last 2 seasons. He's grabby, and he gets flagged, and it's clear he developed a reputation for being grabby because refs threw the flags on him a good deal. Like 18 penalties in 16 were while in coverage. I mean, that's a problem. So that's got to get corrected. You can be physical in the NFL. That's a good thing. It's good that he has that. You don't have to coach that into him, but he's going to have to learn the finer points of playing physical while also not drawing flags. That's on his to-do list.
4 interceptions over the last 2 seasons. You mentioned that Igbinosun fills in a depth need at cornerback. The question being, you draft depth in the second round. For fans who may not understand why it's important to go that direction in the second round, how important is depth in the room right now?
It's huge. And all I'll do is point to last season. You had Tre'Davious White out there who played well in the postseason. I'm not going to debate that for a second. He had a nice season for them in his comeback season after spending a year away with the Rams and the Ravens. But he gets nicked up in the Denver game. You lose Jamarcus Ingram on a wacky waiver situation. Mm-hmm. He's in Houston. And you have to put Dane Jackson on the field for one play, touchdown. And you lost that game in overtime by 3. You want better depth that you can turn to. And this is no reflection on Dane Jackson. He played his best. Guys played his heart out when he was in a Bills uniform. But you need higher quality talent, especially at cornerback in a throwing league. Igbinosun is an example of that. Does he have learning to do? Yes. But the elite physical traits are there, and you can win with those and get by with those better than a 7th-round pick. They felt they had to address it. They did it here. Check cornerback off the list.
I think that's a great point by you. It's not just depth that you're adding to the cornerback room in Davison Igbinosun. It is better depth. It was a need because of what happened last year. Right. You felt like that position group got really slim at times, and you have someone, while he does have learning to do, can plug and play at times and does add a physicality to the defense. We look at who the Bills drafted 35th overall. They go edge rusher TJ Parker out of Clemson, known for that power, known for that motor. Then they go cornerback, Igbinosun, physicality, a powerful type of player. What are we learning about this 2026 draft class?
That they want guys that are going to run and hit. I think that's pretty obvious. These are 2 very physically oriented players that like to deliver a blow, I guess is what I'm saying. Not that there aren't other players in this draft who can do that, but the early indications are Jim Leonard wants a hard-nosed, strength, power-based, physical defense. That's what these 2 picks say to me in terms of what Jim Leonard is looking for. Speed might not be quite as important up front in particular. You obviously need speed at the corner position, but I think players that bring a physical edge to the field is clearly what he's looking for based on these first 2 selections on the defensive side of the ball.
It seems like this coaching staff wants players where in their head, their mindset is, we're going to be game wreckers and we're going to impose our force on you. We're going to make a difference in this game. And that's kind of what Parker and Igbinosun seem like based on their tape and based on some of the traits that we already talked about. You spoke about how he matches back up with defensive back Jordan Hancock, who played at Ohio State. Hancock and Igbinosun overlapped for 2 seasons, 2024, 2025. Ohio State wins the Natty in 2024. You're also getting a player who plays against really good talent and knows how to win at the highest level.
Yeah, and I think the thing that encourages me is while he has to get bigger and stronger to help a little bit better against the run, he played in a conference where there is a lot of running of the football. Michigan runs the football. Iowa runs the football. Michigan State runs the football. Like, there's a lot of teams in that conference. The reason that it's viewed as something he has to work on is because there's enough tape evidence of him defending the run, where in other conferences, you know, out west in particular, they throw it all over the place. You never see a corner make a tackle in the run front. So he's been exposed to it. He's still learning on how to be better and more consistent at it. You know, and I think with the cornerback and DB coaches you have here, like Mike Dana, who's a good developer of talent, Jay Valai, the new cornerbacks coach, you know, who enforces and prioritizes defending the run on the edges, you know, I think he's going to get the right coaching to get better in that area.
Buffalo had a talented pass defense last year at the top of the NFL. They add some new players to the mix this year. No more Taron Johnson. D. Alford walks into the building. C.J. Gardner-Johnson as well. As you look at the defensive backs group as a whole, what are you learning about the type of ball they're going to play and how versatile it could be?
Yeah, I think they want to play angry. I mean, C.J. Gardner-Johnson is one of the best trash talkers in the league, but he brings the physicality to back it up. There are people with their head on the swivel on offense when they're facing C.J. Gardner-Johnson because they might lose their lunch if they're not paying attention. I think Igbinosun has that same on-field disposition. Maybe he's a little quieter as a rookie, but I think he wants to make an impact early and often. So while they have a lot of good character players on this roster, I think they wanted more players with an edge to their game. And we heard TJ Parker tonight say, when I get on the field, I want to bring the pain. We know how Igbinosun plays. We know how C.J. Gardner-Johnson plays. So I think these are examples of what they're trying to institute on the defensive side of the ball. They want an intimidation factor on that side of the ball, so opposing offenses are looking over their shoulder, wondering if they're going to take an extra lick, or if they have enough space to catch the ball and then run, or are they going to get blasted? That
goes along with one of Joe Brady's new sayings, which is, you have to play us. It also makes sense with put the ball down. It doesn't matter where we play, when we play, we're going to be ready to get after it, and we're going to play hard. Brandon Beane goes defense to start the 2026 NFL Draft for the Bills. The general manager is now speaking to media. Let's hear what he has to say.
Your decision to trade back 3 times, can you maybe put into perspective the patience, but at a time when there's a little bit of a sense of urgency with change and transitioning and want to win and the whole thing, but how do you balance one and the other?
Yeah, I mean, Tim, we really, I tell you, every year we try to read our board, and, I think I was trying to allude to it in here last week with the pre-draft presser that, we didn't have a heavy number of first-round grades. And so once we saw the last player come off our board that we had a first-round grade on, we started being more aggressive with the calls. And we had some different opportunities to go back further at one time, but we also wanted to kind of see how things fell before we did it. And we felt like there was still going to be interest by doing that. And I looked at it, it's luck, it's not skill, but we were considering a move from 26 all the way into 2 that I thought was a good move for us. In the end, and then when we did the 1 to 28, I'm like, well, this is good, but you're also thinking, man, I really could have done a lot. Where I'm going with that is, in the end, by the multiple trades, we ended up with more than that in a very similar position. So some of that's good fortune. Those teams still wanted to move back into 1. And it was just really following our board. We had enough guys in a similar value on the board that we felt confident going to 35, we would be able to get a player like TJ.
There were a lot of edge rushers in that part of the draft, Brandon. Why was TJ the one that you guys identified as the fit for your defense?
Yeah, it was one of the strengths of this draft was a variety of edge rushers. Some of them are more DPR-ish. I would say TJ is a 3-down player. His sack production a year ago was 11 and a half, can't remember. Sacks this year, not as many. But you saw enough from him. We did a long study of a lot of these guys of 2 years versus just the 1 year. Some guys were better this year. Some guys were better the previous year. We also, a guy like him had a really good week at the Senior Bowl. So we try and weigh it all. But it's some close discussions. But you saw a run on those guys today. All those guys were in a similar vein, and that gave us the confidence to move back here. When I went home last night, I felt confident we were going to add some type of rusher, whether it was a 3-down, whether it was a DPR type, and TJ was the guy, we had number 1 if it fell that way.
Do you feel that the player just taken Igbinosun?
Yeah.
You talked about Christian Benford. I think it's interesting the other day about where he projects maybe. What kind of versatility does he have? Is he strictly an outside corner? What can he do for you?
Yeah, this guy, IGB, because he's got a tougher name to say, obviously played major competition at Ohio State. He really, a year ago did have some penalties, but this year really cleaned it up. He's big, he's long. If you look at our 2, kind of penciled-in starters of Benford and Max right now, those are 2 different skill sets. I think this is a third skill set, a big, long. The best thing he does is press. Some guys are man match. Some guys are best in off. I think he gives us another added skill set. He started a lot of games, in major college football. He is wired the right way. We brought him. I went to his pro day, and just I wanted to watch his movement, his off the ball. movement versus just press, because he did so much press at Ohio State. And he checked the box, and the multitude of people that I talked to there just raved about his football character, his competitiveness, his love of ball, great teammate. And we found that out here. Jordan Hancock, is close with him, raved about him. And so those guys hung out when he came in for a 30 visit as well. So he kind of passed all the tests for us. And, corner is a premium position. You can't have enough of those guys. And so right now with, Tre'Davious being a free agent, with Dorian's uncertainty at this point, we're hopeful, but we have to prepare right now, with what we're working with, and this adds another guy. You saw the depth of our corners tested last year through injury, and so you want to make sure as the season goes along, if injury strikes, that you got enough guys, even if they're not starters. So this is a depth player that'll come in and compete. He'll push, our starters in time, and we'll kind of take it one day at a time.
How did he take those conversations of those guys being the penciled-in starters, just like that he'll be a backup?
Oh, we haven't talked about that.
Oh, okay.
No, we haven't. No, he's a rookie, so I'm just like, Max has been here a year. CB's obviously been here forever. So any rookie's going to have to come in here and earn it, whether it's TJ, IGB, whoever else we select. I mean, if he's the best player, he'll start the best 11. Will go out there, but there's not really a discussion. Discussion is come in here with all these guys, learn our system, learn your role, play special teams. I think he has the demeanor, the makeup, the size to also help on fourth down. Those are the things you consider as you move down the draft and add depth at various positions.
He had a lot of penalties called against him, whether that's bad officiating or technique. But is it a worry that he committed so many penalties in college?
Well, I would say, Sal, good question, one that we looked at. He improved those dramatically this year, and so we'll work on that. Sometimes that's technique. I'm not going to get into the officiating of whether it was. I'm going to assume they were the good calls. You probably got away with some that could have been called, and maybe were called for some ticky-tack. That usually evens out. That's one of the things that I would say he improved the most if you watch his 24 film to his 25 film. Very aware, football smart, young man, football savvy. He's probably, off coverage is something he'll have to continue to improve on. I think more of those were in that than when he's up in press.
How much would Jim Leonard have known him or been aware of him when he was at Wisconsin? And in the overall picture, in making the switch to an attacking style of defense that Joe wants and Jim wants, how much was it? How important was it to add pieces to it today?
Yeah, we felt like, listen, we want to add good players on either side of the ball, and that'll be the plan. Assuming we don't pick any more tomorrow with what we have left. But we did feel like going into this draft after free agency, we added a DJ Moore. We filled some of the holes in the O-line. We probably had more open spots. As you sit here today with I said, who's going to be our third corner if we lined up and played right now? That's a premium position. We lost Ryan Vandemark. We got some guys who's going to be our third tackle. We got some guys here at least that have, in Grable, and we drafted Lunt last year. But it's positions like that you have to make sure you're ready, because look at the game, and I'm going back to the other side of the ball, the Pittsburgh game last year where two backup guys had to start for us at tackle. So the same thing at corner. We've got some probably more available spots on defense than we do on offense. So that's the other conversation you're having as you move down the board. How does the guy make your roster? And if you feel good he makes your roster, now does he get a jersey on game day? Does he have fourth down value if he's not going to be a starter? So those will continue to be the conversations tomorrow as we work through the fourth and fifth round.
You mentioned Jim with Wisconsin.
So you'd have to ask Jim directly. I don't remember. Jim was very aware. Him and Jay Valai, and Terrence Jamison along the D-line, Bobby April. A lot on our defensive staff have been around these guys or recruited them. So there was a lot of awareness of a number. I don't remember specifically IGB without asking Jim.
And you mentioned liking the depth at edge rusher. So I guess the flip side to that would be, why not wait at that position if you feel like the depth is there and address it later? What about TJ stood out that you felt like you needed to make that move then?
Yeah, you don't know how. I mean, there was a run of them, and you still have them. You know, you have guys in the second round, guys in the third round. I do think if there was a guy standing out above these guys, it would have gave us some comfort that we could get a player maybe, you know, at this pick that we just took IGB. There's still some guys on the board, but I do feel like, you know, you're starting to, you know, those are lower on our board, so you kind of value them. I think with TJ, as I said earlier, some guys are two-down players, they're run. Some guys are DPR. I feel like TJ has proven over the last couple of years to be a three-down. He brings us a three-down skill set, you know, to the group, and I just think that adds more value.
How do you evaluate whether this strategy was worth passing on higher drafted guys?
What's the question?
How would you evaluate this strategy was worth passing up on higher drafted prospects?
Well, I'm basing it on my board. So you know when you trade down, people are going to go up. But that doesn't mean just because someone's drafted there doesn't mean that you valued them. Every team has their own value, and it doesn't make them bad picks. Time will tell on all these picks, right? But that's where you build your board, you study it, and you say, listen, in this case, we had a number of players at a similar value to TJ that we felt confident moving back. And listen, time will tell. TJ has to prove his worth of this pick, just like IGB and whoever else we select.
How close did you come to trading up?
In today? Yesterday. It didn't get close enough where I felt, because knowing that we didn't have the second round, the 91st pick, you know, you can go up 4 or 5 maybe. So I can't remember, or pair that with a 4. You know, we had so many of these, you know, what I think are available spots that we need to fill: depth, youth, add some youth in various spots to this roster. We kind of went in saying, even if a guy fell close to us, that we were like, man, I can't believe this guy's here, we wouldn't want to lose too much of that ammo. So it kind of got answered fairly fast.
At what point do you have too many picks? How many rookies can make this roster?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we'll see as we go down, you know, the board, and that's what we're talking about with, you know, after this pick of what other positions, you know, do we know that if we don't fill here in the draft, we probably need to add some veteran players after. But I still think we have some spots that we can fill tomorrow. We did, you know, part with one of the picks to move up and make sure we got IGB. So what do we have? The 3 4s, the 2 5s, and the 7. So, yeah, I mean, you know, when you get to the 7th round, you know, for the most part, you're kind of securing a guy that you don't have to fight for as a priority free agent. So, in my mind, we got 5 picks. I would sit here and say most likely, we'll see how the board falls, Tim, but I would think a number of these guys will have a chance to make our roster and help us.
In that vein, how important was it to stockpile picks on day one to give you some flexibility to use as leverage to trade up at some point? I mean, getting 5 picks in the first 126, I think, was more than double what you had going in.
Yesterday was huge. How it worked out for us, and we knew when we left here last night, looking at the board, that we're going to be able to get a rusher, as I said, and we thought, you know, our board, you know, was stacked, and I think you saw it. I mean, you guys can look at the picks in the second round. It was a lot more defense than offense, and we kind of saw that as well and thought, you know, we'll follow it. We're at 66. If we feel like a position of need is starting to thin out, we'll move up. Not too far, though, because we worked hard to get this ammunition, and we still feel there's some pieces that we would like to add tomorrow that can help this team, this year and going forward.
I know you said,
Brandon, are you seeing, when you're drafting defensive players, and you did the two tonight, are you looking at them differently for this particular defense scheme versus what you've been doing for the past 9 years, and if so, how?
Yeah, good question. It's probably position specific a little bit, Vic. We're grading the player, the talent. Listen, there were other corners. We weren't just looking for a long press corner. There were other corners that were good as well, that had a little different skill set that we liked. So it wasn't like Jim said, I need this big, long press corner. We put our values on what they do well. What are some of the things they need to work on? Sal referenced, the penalties from a year ago. The good thing was that wasn't this year on that, but I would just say position by position. Obviously, guys, this is a 3-4. So the guys that used to be DNs for us, how do they stand up? Are they a Sam? Are they a rush? So that we probably spent more time on those than we did, I would say, corners and safeties. But I do think there's been a little change even how we exactly wanted our safeties before versus, what we can play with, under Jim's defense, how he would utilize them. So it was kind of position specific more than anything.
I know you said that you, after the last graded guy, first round graded guy went off the board, that's when you ultimately decided to move down.
Yeah.
But you see the board thing out also as it's going, and you said that you knew this was kind of a lesser year for first round, and you have 8 minutes. So when do you ultimately say to yourself, is it leading up to the draft or at that moment, hey, we got to start thinking about maybe getting out of 26? Or are you really sitting there until that moment?
No, you have conversations even before the draft starts with people calling, do you guys plan to pick? Do you think you would move? People in front of us calling, hey, would you guys move up here? And, teams that were, 5, 6, however many up, it was like, yeah, that's going to cost us too much unless you're talking about giving us some great bargain, which, nobody's really going to probably do in the first round. So I would say 90% of our conversations were with the teams directly behind us all the way into the second round. Some of those happen. I would say a lot of contact is made just kind of setting parameters of roughly what you might be talking about for that pick. But like anything, yesterday a couple of times some teams were offering more. And so it's like anything. If more people want it, you can charge a little more, on a premium of it. So it worked out on a couple of those deals. We had a lot of interest in 26, not as much in 28, but then we had a lot in 30. Was 31 the last? Yeah, we had a lot in 31. So doing the move to 28 helped set up, the ammo that we got there at the end to move to 35.
Brandon, why do you feel comfortable using a good asset like a second-round pick on someone who's least projected now to be a backup rather than addressing positions with clear paths to instantly impact this team?
I would say that will impact our team. I mean, if you look at the corners are premium positions. If you just look at, who makes the top dollars in the league, and if you look at our season last year, and it's happened before, John, those guys are all going to play. They're going to play. It's a long season. And when you have corners that are not capable, they get bullseyes on them real fast. And especially when you're playing the primetime quarterbacks, the primetime offenses in this league. I can tell you this. If there's another good corner tomorrow, we'll take them. Like, think of how many guys we went through last season that played in the playoffs for us or helping us get to the playoffs. So you're going to need those guys. And, again, you're suiting up guys not only to fill in as a backup but also to help you on fourth down, too. The kicking game matters as well.
What is the advantage on having 5 picks in the top 125?
Hey, you're giving yourself a chance at better players that you have on your board, guys that you value the most. So it's anytime you're adding assets, it just gives you a chance to move up, move down. What we did yesterday allowed us to be more aggressive and take the 6th-round pick we had today to go secure a corner.
I know you didn't pay an exorbitant price, but did you have an inkling that a team between 62 and 65 might have been looking at him, or were you worried that another team might be calling to move up to get him?
I didn't. I did know that some of those teams were interested in moving back, not crazy far, and it's one of those. We got enough ammo yesterday at a spot like this where it's close. It just made too much sense. I was like, would I rather sit here and wait or be upset that the player was taken? It was like, it's close enough. Let's just do it.
I know you don't have a crystal ball. Like, you can't predict, like...
You guys don't think I have a crystal ball.
Right. Like, what's going to best set up TJ for making an impact in year one? But what have you learned as an evaluator and about that part of the process, figuring out how quickly they can assimilate to your program? And do you note that on your board for guys, and do they get kind of ratcheted up if they're going to assimilate quicker?
Yeah, I mean, we give what we've talked about before, Bills Blue, which is guys that have they can be a 7th rounder or a 1st rounder, but they have all the intangibles, great teammate. They're going to work hard. They're going to do everything they can to achieve whatever the good Lord gave them. So that is part of the process. We spend a lot of time, and that's one of the things that I've learned over my time here is how important, and it's ever-changing now with the NIL, the athlete you're getting and onboarding them and the pressure. Some of these guys are walking in here with money that they didn't used to walk in here with. But they're still young men, and they're still working their way through life. Sometimes they went to college near where they went to high school, and this is the first time moving away from home, and they do hit challenges, or they're leaving their fiance, girlfriend, whatever they do. Life, they're humans. I know a lot of times we put them on pedestals, but that is one of the things that we put a lot of time and effort into our player engagement. Dr. Dez, we have a full hands-on deal trying to work with these guys and try and onboard them from college to being a professional. How do you manage your hours? You don't have class anymore. How do you manage your week? Nutrition, getting them in our weight program. Some of these guys are from smaller schools. The weight program is totally different. Some of the guys, Ohio State, probably not as big of a different transition from their weight program to ours, but sometimes you get some smaller school guys that are. So that is very important. And making sure these guys are mentally and physically right off the field helps you get, a better player on.
Brandon, how did you evaluate TJ's attributes to rush the passer?
Yeah, I think he's got speed, but I think he's got power. He can use his arm. I think he's got a multitude of moves. I think there's more in there. I think we can continue to work on that. But if you just look at his athletic ability and you see it on tape, I think, again, as I said, his 24 film was very impressive. It really was. This year, not as consistent. We'll talk about that. We'll look at that. There were definitely flashes, and you saw it come up again at the end of the year against their rival, South Carolina. You saw it at the Senior Bowl. So it's in there. We just got to – all those are part of maturity and being a steady pro every day. We can't, one year be this and the next year be that. But the flashes are really good of a 3-down player that will stick his face in there and play the run, but – is athletically explosive enough to help you, in the pass rush.
How do you feel about differentiating between, in this 3-4 system, who's going to be on the outside, on the end, on the line, and who's going to be on the outside as far as linebackers go, with the players you have and what you need to add? And then inside, too.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be a stand-up outside backer for us, like a Chubb. That would probably be his closest comp on our team, which will be a great guy for him to learn from as he moves forward.
He's also he's 21, he's already married. His dad he's in the Army, military.
He's in the military.
On the Zoom call, he attributed a lot of his maturity, leadership to all of that? Can you kind of take us through meeting with him and those kind of characteristics?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, as Matt was talking about earlier, like what are, he's, for the most part, has shown to be a mature young man. I think he got married during the bye week last season, comes from a military family. So, seems like he was raised the right way. We have a scout here in Keith Jennings that played at Clemson, knows the Clemson family pretty well, pretty good insight into this guy's daily routine, daily work habits, and really felt like we knew this young man. Obviously, until you get him in your building, you don't fully know him, but a guy that feels like he is fairly mature for his age, and we'll work together to kind of continue to help him mature and welcome him and his wife up here to Western New York.
Was he top 30 too? Was he a top 30?
No.
Is it?
You mentioned previously that you like the depth at inside linebacker in this class. There was a run on him in round 2. How do you feel about what could be left on the board?
Yeah, there's still some guys, but it's kind of like Jay's question earlier. There's still guys, but they're not as ranked as necessarily as high as some of the guys that have already been taken. And you understand that. That means they probably are deficient, in an area that maybe somebody above them was not. But there's still guys that can help us. Some guys better as line of scrimmage players now may need work on fourth down. And then there's some guys vice versa. Man, that guy is going to really, Jeff Rodgers is going to love him. But we're going to have some work to do, as one of our backups, knowing that if they're going to be suited up on game day, they have to be able to, kind of run the defense.
I know it's not necessarily a premium position, but what went into the decision to maybe not prioritize, inside linebacker, especially scheme change and, who you have coming back?
We just followed the board. Yeah, we would have. If a backer was there higher than Igbinosun, we would have taken him.
The offseason addition of DJ Moore, did that change the way you looked at wide receiver even entering the draft? Is there some depth there that you may look to kind of circle back to now as the picks go on?
There's depth there, but we look at it like we selected DJ in the second round, and that's truly he's an addition that we did not have, on this team last year, and so again, what I said earlier, you're looking at, obviously his role, Shakir, Palmer coming back, Keon. And it's not lip service. Like we're excited about Keon, and he's, the first few weeks here, it's been very, very positive, and I think you guys will see that in time, and proud of what he's done. But Shavers is, rehabbing his knee. We got McCole Hardman. We got a number of guys here. So, how do they get a jersey? What's their role? All those factors, to as we move down the line on the board of receiver. If it's the best player, though, we'll definitely take it and throw him in the mix and let it shake out how it does.
Brandon, why did you veer for more of an all-around skill set with TJ versus more speed, explosiveness, bend around the edge with some of the others?
You just evaluate the player. It wasn't like we said, hey, we're going for just speed, or we weren't not going for speed. I think TJ, I wouldn't say TJ's slow. TJ's a bigger man than maybe an R. Mason, somebody like that. Two different players, both very good players. I mean, another good pick by Kansas City. But you just kind of put the players and you value them how you do, and it doesn't mean they're far apart or not. You just, as I said, he has a 3-down skill set, and we like what he brings.
Do you guys view Igbinosun as strictly an outside corner, or do you see any future with Nicholas?
I mean, listen, I would say, I don't see him necessarily with a nickel skill set. I'm not saying, we like versatility. It's not that we would never rep him there and see how he does. I don't necessarily project that, from my lens as we see there. I see him more as an outside guy. But, obviously D. Offord is there. Hancock's played nickel. I think we've got some guys that can do that role as well.
Brandon, you mentioned Trey being a free agent with this and the value you put on corners. Is that door still open, or how do you kind of view things with Trey right now?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's changed. Like, we love Trey, and so you would just one day at a time. I mean, right now, as I said, they were just focused on the draft, and I think he and his crew were just kind of, at this point, waiting to see, what the opportunities are here or, or potentially elsewhere.
Do you have a plan for Jordan Hancock right now that or will that develop over time as far as safety or nickel?
Yeah, I mean, we like versatility. What's position one? I wouldn't want to say that yet till we kind of get out there in the spring. That's probably something that would declare itself, more at camp. But I still think we'll try and make him as versatile as possible because you never know on game day. If you're not the starter, we want you to kind of know multiple spots. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Yep.
Thank you.
That was Bills general manager Brandon Beane discussing how they got to 35. Said at 26, they did have an option to get into the second round, but ultimately decided to trade back a couple times, accrue some more picks, and they're happy they did so. Beane felt like at 35, they could get an edge rusher like TJ Parker. They believe he's a 3-down player and has some power to his game. Beane also mentioned he does a lot of great things, but we believe that we can also teach him more. Right.
And look, he's got a couple of pass rush moves. I think he's got to add to the repertoire, and I think that's what Beane is referencing. Because like I said, he's got a great one-arm stab move. He's got that move where he literally grabs the wrist of the offensive tackle and throws it to the side like a swipe move, if you will. I've never seen anybody grab the wrist and throw it, but he does it. Most guys just go with the two-hand swipe move and rake the arms across. He grabs the hand and just pulls them out of the way and then goes and makes the play. But I think he's got to get some other moves in his repertoire, and that's going to require some development. But look, he's going to learn at the elbow of a veteran who's a proven player in this league and a proven pass rusher in Bradley Chubb. So soak it all up because his body type is very similar to that of Chubb, who goes about 6'4" and 260. Parker's 6'3", 260. They got the same body type. So a lot of the things that have worked for Chubb, I think, can carry over to TJ. So he would be wise to just sit in Bradley Chubb's hip pocket every single day. On the field, in the locker room, in the film room, just sit next to that guy and soak up as much as you can. Be a sponge.
Beane mentioned Chubb is going to be a great player for TJ Parker to learn from, and learning about who TJ Parker is as a player from Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney. Swinney said he's the type of player who's on his off day, he's going to be at the facility practicing, doing things on his own. So I can already see Parker following Chubb all around the facility, learning as much as he can during that rookie season. Talking about cornerback Davison Igbinosun and what Brandon Beane had to say, he said that IGB, the best thing he does is press. He adds a new skill set to the cornerbacks room that they didn't have, and said that he's wired the right way. You made the point earlier on the show saying that cornerback was a depth position that the Bills needed because of the fact that in the past couple seasons, cornerbacks have gone out at important moments in games, and there's a bullseye on your back if you're a depth cornerback who can't hold up. Beane said we don't want to have that on this roster, and we feel like he can add good depth to that position group.
Yeah, I mean, injuries quite literally cost them against the Chiefs 3 years ago at home. Christian Benford gets injured in the AFC title game, suffers another concussion from friendly fire. They're at a deficiency there in the pass game. And then last year, Tre'Davious White goes out for a play. Dane Jackson on the field. One of their safeties gets hurt. Darnell Savage goes on the field, gets victimized for a touchdown. That's 2 touchdowns on plays in which backups come into the game because your quality of depth is just flat out not good enough. I'm sorry, but it just wasn't. And so Brandon Beane is tired of getting burned in those situations by not having quality of depth. So, look, you want to argue like, oh, is Igbinosun even going to get on the field? I think he will get on the field. I think he'll be on the field in some sub packages. Is he going to start? I don't know. Who knows? He may come in here and outperform Max Hairston. We don't know. Max Hairston's got, 7 games under his belt? I just think the Bills have given themselves a boost in the quality of their depth on the back end, which has proven to be disastrous the last couple of years in the playoffs due to lack of depth. So address that so it's not a problem anymore. So to me, it made a lot of sense.
Beane said, look what happened the last few seasons. Look at how many corners played the last few seasons. He said somebody like IGB is going to play. All of these corners are going to play at some point this upcoming season. Beane also mentioned DJ Moore and the fact that they valued that type of wide receiver in the second round, didn't think that they could get somebody like that in the second round, so they decided to do that ahead of the draft and said that Moore adds an element to the offense that we didn't have. I think it's important to look at the DJ Moore trade and the addition of DJ Moore holistically with what the Bills have already done on draft night.
Right, and if you look at round 1, there were only 5 receivers that came off the board. In round 2, you had 1, 2, 3 come off the board in round 2. So what Brandon Beane said is accurate. You had 8 receivers in the first 2 rounds, only 3 in round 2. I'll take DJ Moore over Jeremy Bernard. I'll take DJ Moore over Denzel Boston, and I'll take DJ Moore over Dejon Stribling. Those are your 3 second-round wide receivers. So I think he played that right. And with all the trading around that he did, he ended up with 2 second-round picks anyway and took 2 defensive players at positions of need. And I think he was very astute in how he played this draft thus far. And the reason I say that is they moved out of round 1, accrued draft capital. They ultimately make 2 picks in round 2 where you knew there was going to be a run on defensive players. How much of a run? 18 of the first 23 picks in round 2 were on defense. 18 out of 23. He positioned the team in a place where they could be part of that run, getting an edge rusher early and then a corner later.
Yeah, you figure out what your need is, and Beane said we went with what our draft board said. That's why they do all that prep leading up to the NFL draft, so they have that board set and they can follow it as the night happens. Beane said off the rip in the press conference that we didn't have a lot of first-round grades. So once we ran out of those first-rounders, we started thinking about trading back into the second round. And what they do is they accrue a lot more picks, which also allows them to move back into the second round and get those 2 second-round picks. These are valuable picks for Buffalo. And Beane knows and thinks that these guys are going to play time this season.
Yeah, and we're about halfway through the third round as we currently sit here. And the Bills don't have a third-round pick anymore, but they have 3 4s. So if somebody slides down the board here at the end of round 3, I would not put it past them to make a small move up and possibly get into round 3 at the end of the night here tonight. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think he wants to part with that first pick in round 4.
Yeah.
He might be more apt to part with one of the other 2 at 125 or 126, but I don't know if that's enough ammo to get into the bottom of round 3 without probably giving up one of the 5s as well. So it'd have to be a pretty special player to make that kind of a move, and they may just sit tight and just play it out to start day 3, where they're still deemed to be a pretty decent amount of talent, still on the board here. I think you still have value at receiver. I think you still have value at defensive tackle, especially if you want a big run stuffer. We'll see what still comes off the board in round 3. Maybe it's picked a little cleaner by the time we get to round 4 tomorrow, but we'll have to see how this round ends to assess where the Bills can attack in round 4 and round 5 tomorrow.
Digging into that more, having 3 4th-round picks, 2 5th-round picks right now, what position groups make sense based on need right now for Buffalo's roster rather than what's available?
I think you would like to get a big defensive tackle, and if TJ Parker and all the people they've accumulated on the edges are any indication, I think they just want a big guy to stand in there and be a run stuffer. And there will be guys in the 4th round and later that are big-bodied, 315, 320, because, again, much like the cornerback position, Maddy, you look at defensive tackle, and, yes, you have Ed Oliver, you have Deion Walker, you have T.J. Sanders, you have Landon Jackson, who's probably going to be a D-end in this 3-4 with his hand on the ground. And you've got some other guys that were up and down off the practice squad. Fedarian Mathis, Zion Logue, Tommy Aking-Basote. But these are unproven players. So if you can draft one, because, look, you got Larry Ogunjobi, free agent, probably not coming back. Daquan Jones, 34 years old, probably not coming back. So there are holes in this roster at the defensive tackle position. Not to mention the fact that you're playing a different scheme now. How different, we'll have to wait and see. but I think a defensive tackle could make a lot of sense in round 4. I think safety could make sense in round 4 because, yes, you have C.J. Gardner-Johnson there. Yes, you have Geno Stone there, veterans, but they're both on one-year contracts.
Right.
Jordan Hancock, it still doesn't sound, based on what Brandon Beane said, where he's going to line up yet. So do you want a true safety that you could add, that you can bring along and develop? I think it merits consideration. The Bills did an awful lot of work on safeties. This was obviously before they acquired C.J. Gardner-Johnson in free agency and Geno Stone as well. So maybe the pressing need goes away, but it doesn't mean they can't invest in somebody for future playing time at the position and maybe get a long-term playing partner for Cole Bishop rather than a one-year fix every year.
Knowing that the Bills are switching to a new defense, Beane has mentioned that he thinks the inside linebacker class is pretty deep in the NFL draft. Is it as deep enough going into rounds 4 and 5, or do you believe that run has already started at the bottom of 2 and into 3?
I think the run has started, but I still see my linebacker 7, my linebacker 8 still on the board. We're talking like guys like Kyle Lewis from Pitt, I think is still out there. And I believe Keyshawn Elliott from Arizona State is still out there. That's my 7 and 8 linebackers. And you got more guys after that. Let's not forget the UB kid, Red Murdoch, who hits like a freight train.
Yep. That
a lot
seems
of forced
like fumbles.
That seems like
That's
it's
a good
what
point.
Jim Leonard is looking for. And look, that guy's not going to come in and start.
No.
But I think he's a depth piece. Again, we go back to depth. Depth at inside linebacker right now is Joe Andreessen, and some guys that were up and down on the practice squad last year.
Keontae
Jenkins,
Jimmy
Charlo. These are all practice squad guys. You want somebody with a little bit more of a body of work from the college ranks that projects more prominently to the NFL. It's no knock on the guys that are here. It's just any chance you have to upgrade, again, we come back to it, the quality of your depth. It behooves you to do that. You have to make your team better wherever you possibly can. So I think it's defensive tackle, linebacker, safety. And look, if the right receiver slips to you, take a swing and add to the ranks there. So those are probably the 4 positions: DT, linebacker, safety, wide receiver.
We've talked a lot about defense for all these position groups that make sense for Buffalo on day 3. You mentioned the wide receiver group. Any other offensive positions that the Bills could go in the draft, or could it be similar to last year where you just see defense? 6
of their 9 picks were on defense last year. It broke a record for the most defensive picks taken by the Bills in one draft, or tied a record, I believe. So looking at it, let's just take a quick look, okay? Offensive line, you're pretty much set with the exception of left guard where there's going to be a competition. Probably Alec Anderson, maybe Austin Corbett, who they picked up in free agency, are going to compete for that job. You also signed Lloyd Cushenberry in free agency. That's another veteran depth piece. You have Cedric Van Pran Granger as a backup center option. You still have Travis Clayton, the international pathway player, who might be ready to challenge for a 53-man spot, either at guard or swing tackle, with Tylen Grable, who was the swing tackle but has been nicked up each of the last 2 years and had sports hernia surgery last season. So you've got tackle options in the backup ranks, and you have guard options in the backup ranks, and you have center options in the backup ranks. I don't think you need to add to O-line. Not to mention you got Nick Broker back, a former 6th-round pick that you took off somebody's practice squad last year. So you're really flush with depth there. Tight end, you go 4 deep if you count Kaleki Latu, who came up for 3 games last year.
Right.
So you don't need to add there. Running back, you're set 1 through 3, and Frank Gore's your practice squad 4. So wide receiver, it really is the only position. And you're set at backup quarterback with Kyle Allen.
True. Wide receiver, focusing on that position group. Steve Tasker and I talked about it earlier in this week. There's only one football to go around. Right. So if you're looking to add a wide receiver based on what the Bills already have, what are some traits that would be advantageous to add to that position group?
It's separation ability. I think that's number one, because they really don't have separators outside of Khalil Shakir, who I think is a proven separator in the short to intermediate area. Ideally, if you can find a separator who can threaten all 3 levels of the field, that's great. But at this point in the draft, that's probably unrealistic. So find a receiver that has that characteristic. I think if you can't find that, then try to find a field stretcher. Someone who can replace what Brandon Cooks was at the end of last season for this offense. Joshua Palmer was an injury-prone player for this team last year. And again, here we go, quality of depth.
True.
So it might be hard to find that, but I think there are still some decent receivers that you can find in the 4th round here. I mean, I'll try to pull out my list real quick and just run down some names of players that I still know are still out there and available for them that have 4th round grades. You're talking about a Bryce Lance from North Dakota State. Brazel just went to the Carolina Panthers here in round 3. Deion Burks can fly. He's small. He's 5'9", 180, but he runs a 4.3 flat. I think Skylar Bell is still out there. That's a player that was of interest to the Bills. I think he was here on a 30 visit. Malik Benson can run 6 foot, 189, 4.37 out of Oregon. So there are guys that can stretch the field. Kendrick Law, Alabama transfer, goes to Kentucky, 4.45 speed. He's 5'11", 203. He's thick. Like, he can break tackles after the catch. So there are going to be options there at the receiver position that can still help Buffalo.
Thinking about adding a day 3 wide receiver to the Bills, how important is it to add a wide receiver who may give you some punt return ability or special teams ability? How important is that at this point?
Yeah, I think if you can add it, that's great. The more you can do, right? Because if you draft a receiver in round 4 or round 5, and let's say their skill set is still somewhat limited with the route tree and the finer points of playing the receiver position, if he can help you on special teams as a returner or a gunner on punt team, he's got a better chance of making your 53-man roster, and you can better justify the pick, right? I think Kendrick Law has punt return ability and has done it in college. I believe Malik Benson was a punt returner at Oregon, so he offers that. So there are options there. There are going to be options there in round 4 tomorrow.
I know Skylar Bell is a wide receiver who, while was very productive for UConn, did not do anything in terms of special teams or punt return ability. In case the Bills want to go in a direction where you can get multiple things out of one wide receiver. As you look at how the 2nd and 3rd rounds fell, and thinking back to the 1st round as well, Chris, are any teams jumping off the board to you as, wow, this team has gotten better, or wow, this was a really surprising pick that I didn't expect to happen?
Yeah, I mean, look, Seattle has just sat at the bottom of the round and just stick and pick, and, you know, they've done pretty good. I like what they did at the bottom of each of their rounds. I'm not going to remember off the top of my head who they got, but they come to mind. Detroit moved around the board a little bit, picked up some nice players. I thought they did well. I'll give credit to the Jets here. You know, there are 3 picks in round 1, all good players. They got some great help for their offense at the skill positions. I still think they got a lot of work to do on their offensive line. I mean, it's great that you got guys to throw to. Can the pass protection hold up to let Geno throw the ball? I don't know. So I think they still have a lot of work to do there. Pittsburgh's moved around the board a little bit. So is San Fran. I'll be honest, though, Maddie, I haven't really checked what other teams are doing. I've been kind of Bills-focused here.
Focused on what's going on.
Houston made some nice moves up and down the board. They made a trade with the Bills, but they have Keelan Rutledge, Caden McDonald, and they took a tight end, Martin Klein. So that's a nice start for them in the trenches after losing some veteran free agents on their defensive line and offensive line.
Knowing this quarterback class was not incredibly talented, and Fernando Mendoza goes 1st overall. Ty Simpson sneaks into the 1st round as well, going to the Rams. You see Carson Beck go off the board at the top of the 2nd round to the Arizona Cardinals, and then later on, the Steelers select Drew Aller, quarterback out of Penn State. Makes sense for those 2 teams based on what they don't have or what they need to add to the quarterbacks on their roster.
Yeah, Beck was top of the 3rd round.
Oh, top of the 3rd round.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's the same. But, so those 2 guys go in the 3rd round, and I think it just speaks to the lack of quality in this year's quarterback class. But those teams are desperate. They need quarterback help. So maybe they reinvest in the 27 draft when there are going to be more quarterback prospects. But for now, hey, it's the 3rd round. We need help there. Let's take a flyer on the guy. Maybe we find somebody, and we're more impressed than we thought, and it works out for them.
We are standing by because cornerback Davison Igbinosun is speaking to media. Let's hear from the newest Bills pick.
Congratulations. how would you describe to Bills fans the type of player and the type of mindset you bring to a team?
You're getting a player that's built for Buffalo, built for the Bills Mafia. You're getting a nasty, edgy player who sets the tone in the secondary, who's ultra aggressive and just a competitor who lives for the matchup outside. I live for the me versus him.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mookie.
You want to go now? I think we got. Hey, Davison. I think I got unmuted here. My name is Sal from WGR Radio in Buffalo. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
It says Davison. That's what you go by. But I'm seeing that's actually your middle name. Can you say your full name for us and how to pronounce it all?
I'm Mwawusa Davison Igbinosun. I'm
Mwawusa.
I'm Mwawusa.
I'm Mwawusa.
Yes, Mwawusa. I like the letter I. Mwawusa. Yep. Davison.
Thank you.
Igbinosun. And my first name means you can't argue with God.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm going to go back and re-listen about 10 times before I try to get it right again, just so you know. Thank you. I appreciate it. David, but you do prefer to be called Davison, right? We just want to make sure here.
Everybody calls me, I go by IGB.
IGB. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's okay with the media calling you IGB? You okay with that? You prefer that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm interested in, you took some penalties a couple of years ago. They tailored off a little bit last year. But how did you kind of correct that? What's your thought on, how that's evolved for you over the last couple of years?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I'm always trying to get better and improve my game. So, like, obviously that was something that I needed to improve on my game. That was kind of holding me back a little bit. So I just made that an emphasis, a focus point in the offseason with my coaches at Ohio State. Just watching the film and just seeing a lot of the situations I was in. Wasn't that I was necessarily beat. I was in great position a lot of times. Just needed to relax and play with poise at the top of the route. Like, a lot of those PIs should have been PBUs and interceptions, should have been ball production.
As you can see by my name, I'm also a Sopranos fan. What got you into the TV show? I'm reading your bio. And do you have a favorite episode?
What got me to the TV show? I mean, I'm from Jersey, so like, just
there you go.
Sopranos growing up. My favorite episode, I want to say when Tony is trying to kill that guy on the boat. I don't want to say his name.
Okay. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I can't say his name. Yeah, his name.
I understand. Hey, good man. You're already like, you got this media thing down. You're on a Zoom call. I get it. Everybody's gonna hear this. I know what you mean. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's it. Hey, let's end on that. That's really cool. Thanks, IGB. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was definitely a great scene. IBG, Mookie Hawkins, Waffle Sports 1080. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So just tell us, what was your reaction when you saw Buffalo on the caller ID?
It just made sense. Like, with this whole like process, you can't like, you know a lot of people in the process, you make good connections, but you never know, it's a business at the end of the day. But like, I know when I went to Buffalo, I put my best foot forward. I felt very connected with the guys, just hanging out with Hancock and Max Hairston and just all the boys, Strong, just sitting that was the first time I sat at the table with some guys. I'm like, dang, I wouldn't be mad if I had to be with these boys every day. Like, it wouldn't be the worst thing. So like, and I had a good meeting with I just like the people in the building. They're just authentic. So I wasn't surprised, but it's just nerve-wracking draft day.
Yeah, man, we know Buffalo kind of leans heavily on the zone with match principles. So how did that align with your strengths or your skill set?
Yeah, I think that's another thing in my game. Like, I feel like I have a lot of I would say I have a lot of areas to improve on and a lot of areas that I'm well. Like, we played a lot of zone at Ohio. I played a lot of different defenses in college. So I played a lot of zone at Ohio State. So I'm excited. I think I'll prosper in this system.
Did you speak with Jordan Hancock at all since you've been selected?
He FaceTimed me. I didn't hear what he said. He was screaming at me. I was screaming at him. But I spoke to him though.
Right, that's enough said right there, man. I appreciate the time, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Hey, IGB, this is Catherine from the Buffalo News. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That sounds like a wonderful Zoom call with Jordan. So excited to get you here and hear more about it. But I was curious, Brandon Beane was saying how you add a different element to this defense. How would you describe your game?
I would say like I'm a spark plug. Like I feel like my teammates feed off me. I set the tone. I play with passion. And I play with energy. Like every day, I don't take anything for granted. When I'm on the football field, I turn it up. I'm not just out there to be out there. I don't take advantage of the days. Like
And then just what has this draft process been like for you? Like, who were you watching with? Where are you watching from? What has the environment been
I
like?
was in Union, New Jersey, at my mother's house, surrounded by my closest friends and my family. So it meant the world to me.
Thanks and congrats again.
Thank you so much.
Hi, IGB, Matt Perino from Syracuse.com. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
We were just talking to Brandon for a few minutes, and he had mentioned Jay Valai being somebody that's very familiar with your game. When you had those conversations with him during the draft process, what were some of the things that you guys either connected on or you felt like, this would be, from a football perspective, a great fit?
So I would say Coach Valai, he actually coached at Rutgers. I'm a Jersey kid. So like I knew all of the Rutgers coaches. I knew of them and they knew of me. So he kind of knows my background, like just growing up, being in New Jersey, just Jersey tough being from the concrete. I would say we just connected because like he loved football and I love football too. And like he saw that with the tools that I have at corner and his coaching, he thinks that we'll have a good partnership. And I agree.
I'm going to put you on the spot. What's your favorite memory from Ohio State?
That's easy, winning a national championship. But I also enjoyed beating Team Up North, not going to lie. That felt like a national championship, but it wasn't.
Well, there's a couple of Michigan folks in the media here, so they can't wait for you to get to town.
I'll be waiting to see them too.
All right. Thanks, IGB.
For sure.
That's all we have for you today, Davis.
That's newest Bills cornerback Davison Igbinosun saying that he adds some nastiness to the defense. He's a spark plug. He's a starter. He gets it going for the group. And as we look back on who the Bills have drafted so far, TJ Parker seems like he fits that mold as well. This is the type of defense Buffalo wants to play. In your face, nasty, physical, get after it.
Yeah, and look, those guys will just follow the lead of some of the veterans that are on the roster. And, you got a guy like C.J. Gardner-Johnson that's going to probably lead the charge in that regard. And, look, they got to play tougher on that side of the ball. They want to be intimidating on that side of the ball. And I'm curious to see how the defensive front takes shape because, as we said earlier, Maddy, they still need depth at linebacker. They still need depth at defensive tackle, and some are coming off the board here in late round 3. So we'll have to see what's left for them to choose from by the time we get to round 4 to start the day tomorrow, where the Bills will be batting leadoff with pick 101.
Pick 101 is where they'll start the day tomorrow. They have 2 other 4th-round picks right now, 2 5ths and a 7th-round pick. Anything else stick out about the night, what Buffalo has left on the slate for day 3, what Brandon Beane said?
Yeah, I think they can really make some hay here in rounds 4 and round 5. They have 5 picks at their disposal. I think they'll probably stay right where they are at the top of round 4 with that 101 pick. But I think they could parlay a 4 and a 5 to move up and take somebody higher in round 4 if there's someone they covet there that they feel is sliding down the board and is of great value to them. So, because in the end, what do they have? 2, 4, 6, 8 picks? I don't know if 8 draft choices are making this roster. So maybe they finish with 6 and use some of those later round picks to package together, move up the board, get a player of higher quality, maybe a receiver if one's sliding that they like, something of that nature. That's really what I think they're going to be after here. Find the right players, focus on quality over quantity at this point in time.
The Bills start the 2026 NFL Draft, drafting 2 defensive players, edge rusher TJ Parker out of Clemson, and then cornerback Davison Igbinosun out of Ohio State. They have 6 picks left, all happening on day 3. Make sure you tune into day 3 of NFL Draft coverage on NFL Network, ESPN, and ABC. For Chris Brown, I'm Maddy Glab. We want to thank you for tuning in to our NFL Draft special. We'll see you all next time.